Hello and welcome to episode 28 of Establish the Collection. I am Cody Main, joined as always by my co-host, the $1 Million Man himself, Gary Hartman. Gary, how's it going, buddy?
It's a dangerous nickname to carry around. What if I'm 70 and someone calls me that and what am I supposed to say?
If
Yeah,
you
there,
if
there
you
used
win
to
a
be a
million,
game called DFS.
it's now defunct and no one plays it anymore. It's completely gone by the wayside. But back in 2019,
Yeah, right.
once you've won a Millionaire Maker, you are officially a $1 Million Man.
All right, fair
And
enough.
and we might
Fair
as
enough.
well just jump off here. You've been crushing the DFS streets lately. How are things going for you, buddy?
Yeah, it's going all right. Well, it's going well. I mean, trying to stay hot.
Yeah.
We talked about the NBA win last week. I think had
Mhm.
that. Came in second in the juke in football last week, so that was good. Trying to keep it going this weekend. I'll be on Establish the Million with Drew Dinkmeyer tomorrow. If you want to hear my good football takes, if this you could hear this in the past, because by the time this comes out, that will have already happened. But then you go back, if you're an ETR subscriber, you listen to Establish the Million, you win $1 million on Sunday, and that's how it all goes. So there you
Doing
go.
things in reverse order here, but that's okay
Yeah,
because this thing probably won't come out until Sunday night, Monday. We'll see. But
maybe.
we are
Yeah.
recording late Friday night. It's been a full week for Gary and I, both in the NFL and the NBA streets. So we figured we push this thing off a little bit because we don't have really too much pertinent sports information to talk about tonight, but we do want to get into some kind of macro hobby discussion. And I think we can just jump off from there, Gary, because the DFS streets have treated you well recently in the last couple of years. And the card streets, obviously, as well, as why we're here. We're here to talk about sports collectibles, sports cards. But man, it's been rough lately. I think the people want to know if you're consistently posting 5-figure, 6-figure scores in DFS, is there really any reason to still be investing in sports cards and sports collectibles right now? I
uh,
say that in jest, but
yeah,
seriously, I
no.
think this is a good point to talk about, with so many ways for us to play around with our discretionary income and for us to turn this hobby into some form of investing, right? With sports, it's been a rough couple of months, a rough quarter. At least last couple of quarters for sports cards. So, just what are your general takes on where we are in the hobby right now?
I'm in an okay place. And to your point, I mean, I'm never going to not be doing it just because it's something I love. But also,
Right.
I've built up such a big inventory and everything that it's like it has to be a part of my life. With how busy, and you were just talking about like the fact that we're recording Friday night, like we're both at the time of year right now. I think we're just incredibly busy. So unfortunately, I'm finding cards like just at least my active selling not be as active as I want it to be right now, and or even as I would need it to be, just to keep my inventory moving. You know, ebbing and flowing. But no, I feel okay about where we are because we had the only reason that you even look at like say the last 2 quarters as something that's really in the red is because of what we peaked so high to. I mean, we've spoken about this before, but
Right.
we peaked so high back in like April, May, and that area that it was unsustainable. But if you really look from there, once we've leveled off, you look the last 3 to 6 months, we're fine. I mean, we've leveled off. If you look at just the card ladder index as an example, for the last 6 months, barely any change. I mean, the last quarter, it's up 5%, but you just barely any change on that card ladder index, which is like what the 50 of the most famous cards
Right.
for the last 3 to 6 months. So it's really that we're going to see those red numbers because of how
Mhm.
high we hit. But if you really look at it, take a step back. Generally, I think for stuff that is rarer, we're at a really solid spot. And it's all the same thing that we've talked about with the bottom falling out from under us is the base of it all. Which that's where I think we could really have the conversation once again. Is our base cards dead more than our
Yes.
sports cards dead? You know what I mean?
I
So
think that's such a good point to start, because the card ladder index, which has been such a just kind of a basis for us to base the interest in the hobby off of, and the health of the hobby off of, has kind of been a good point for us to look at. But they break that down even further. If you look closely, you can see that they've got low end indexes, mid end indexes, and high end indexes. And just looking at the low end, it's down 14,
yeah,
almost 15% over the last quarter. Based off of just my sales volume, based off of the bids that I'm seeing, that makes sense just anecdotally from my action, from my
yep,
volume. And we kind of had expected that. Even in recent episodes, we had stopped talking about base PSA 10s as a player's market and shifted more towards silver refractors to explain players, and even more colored refractors, numbered cards, because I think that's where the hobby is headed. As you mentioned, we were just in this 18-month, almost 2-year cycle. That was just this crazy bull run through the COVID run, through the Last Dance run, and everything was going up. And we've seen this in a number of markets recently in the last 18 to 24 months where just everything goes up. And eventually that's just not sustainable. And the stuff that wasn't supposed to be valued where it was in the first place is the first thing to fall off. And we're seeing that in sports cards too. The base cards were the first thing to fall off. And if you were buying base PSA 10s for probably any player in March, April, May, you're probably not feeling too great right now. But if you take a step back and look at kind of the mid end, some of the stuff that Gary and I are investing in, and even the higher end stuff that Gary's definitely involved in, that stuff is up. Not only is the high end stuff leveling off, the high end stuff is continuing to rise. The high end stuff over the last quarter, as calculated by Card Ladder, is up 14%. Right. So I think it's just, and we've talked about this, and you've been really, really harping on this too, Gary, is just how healthy it is to see kind of some of this base stuff level off, which we needed it to do for young people to get involved in the hobby, for people with less money to get involved in the hobby. But the high end stuff continues to rise, as that's what we would expect long term anyway.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it any better myself. And if you've been listening to this podcast from the beginning, way back, however many months ago we started now, I was talking about this was my investment strategy from the start, right? Like I was never the one to be investing too heavily in base cards, right? Even when I was in breaks, the stuff I was chasing was the high end stuff. And
right.
Obviously that's not something that is sustainable for a lot of people. I completely understand that. But I always was interested in stuff that at the very least we knew what was in circulation on it, right? Even I would chase colored refractors or patch autographs over silvers, even though silvers I still think are in a very healthy place, just because we still don't even know the full circulation on something like that. So I just felt much more comfortable knowing the rarity, the scarcity on a specific card. And I continue to do that. And that's why my overall investment thesis as a card collector has been 90% that, refractors, short printed, colored. And even if I am probably tilted towards ultra modern with my overall inventory, I feel okay with where I'm at, because you look at those mid end and high end indexes and you feel pretty good about where those are at. Even the mid end, which is, still slightly down over the last 3 to 6 months, it's pretty much leveled off like we've seen as a whole. So it's the low end.
I think there are a few interesting questions on the low end for people that are listening to the show that are maybe involved with a couple $100 budget or a few $1,000 budget and want to spread that out around a few players or around a few sets, whatever the case may be. Is there any reason at this point, if you're trying to use this as a money-making hobby, will there ever become a point, do you think there's any sort of reason at this point to invest in the base PSA 10 stuff that we had talked about long ago in episodes past?
Yeah, I think there's certain things that you can do if that's where you are looking still. So I think if you kind of look before 2018 and you want to try to look in the raw streets for, like, say for basketball, like Jason Tatum's year and earlier, Devin Booker, Nikola Jokic, those years and earlier, I think if you want to look in raw or like PSA 9, stuff like that you think you can kind of be within your budget, I think because those pops are going to remain relatively low, I think there's going to be value there. And then my other thesis, just from an American sports perspective, is going to just be quarterbacks. We've seen, I just think that is still going to be a safe place to play, even as some of those pop counts get high on the ultra modern stuff. If you're looking to kind of be interested in the new releases, your budget's sitting around stuff that might be the base of it all, I think that's the places that I would be looking if you are interested in staying in those streets, that I think you have more of a safe it's just a more safe overall investment than kind of just going willy-nilly trying to buy Zion rookie cards that are base PSA 10s or whatever it might be.
Right. And I agree with that. I think there are some base stuff that the hate on base cards in recent months has gone a little bit too extreme. I'm just looking at Kawhi because I happen to see auctions ending recently. We've talked about Kawhi in the past, and obviously he's injured. I don't even know if we know the status of where he'll be this season. That's probably still to be determined.
Yeah, mixed thoughts on if he's going to come back at all this season. You hear different things all the time.
Right, but we're talking, and I'm not good at these historical comparisons. You're much better at them than I. But we're talking about a top overall player, clear Hall of Famer, won multiple NBA titles, multiple NBA Finals MVPs. Pop count on that 2012 Prism base is 1,100, and that thing has dropped precipitously over the last 6 months. It's down 57%. You can find that thing for anywhere around $775 to $800 right now. That's one of those things that, yes, I understand the base card hate has kind of gotten to a point where it's tough to get excited about base cards in general. But if there was a set, or if there was a player, or if there was an era to get excited about, it would be something like that 2012 Kawhi Prism.
Completely agree. And we've talked about that whole 2012 set in general. I think any of those big rookies from that set are in a good spot. Clay, Draymond, Kawhi, maybe not Kyrie, but you know what I mean. So yeah, great point. And yeah, I mean, Kawhi, they just named the top 75 player of all time. I think well deserved. And I still, even if his best days are behind him, there's more to add to that career. So those are great targets, people like that for sure.
You've alluded to your strategy already. We don't need to rehash it too much, but just for going forward, let's say 2022 and beyond, starting fresh with the new year, what is kind of your overall investment thesis with sports cards and how you're deploying your funds moving forward?
Yeah, it hasn't changed too much. I mean, just for where I'm at right now with focusing on trying to build the fantasy side of things, I alluded to just buying this house, the apartment that we bought in the city. I just have not been on a super, super high end buying streak. Obviously when I see things are undervalued, like we were talking about Mahomes the other week, I will definitely be trying to pick things up. So that's where I'm at. And we'll get into this episode, some buy windows and buying opportunities, maybe in NFL and NBA a little bit. But that's just where I'm at. Like when I because I'm so involved in the actual day in, day out of at least NFL and NBA, when I think, oh, somebody's slumping, or I think this is a buying opportunity, that's when I'll kind of dive in. And it's like investing in any other market. You want to try to buy, you're looking to buy the dips. You're never gonna nail it necessarily, but that's where I'm at. And then, still I'm interested in basketball and football the most. And then I'm really interested in trying to get into some of these alternative sports. So F1, I still feel really, really good about. I mean, always, again, this is a great indicator. Look at the wax prices to see how things are rolling. And F1, I mean, it's just crazy what those 2020 tops and tops Chrome Sapphire have done. It's just nuts. Almost $2,000 a box just for the Chrome Sapphire now. I mean, it's almost tripled from when I started, investing in that stuff. And then goal of mine is to learn a little bit more about soccer and UFC, just because I think there's real opportunity there. So I'm trying to kind of get into those alternative sports where the circulation and the distribution isn't as wide, and just overall the production might not be as big. That's where I'm looking right now. And then, it's same as everything. Just the shorter printed stuff is what interests me. And if not, I'm looking into try to get out of the ultra modern range into, as you've mentioned, maybe early 2010s, 2000s players, guys that I know are surefire Hall of Famers. Just an overall safer portfolio. I'm probably not, because I feel like I do have a good amount of risk already in what I own. I'm probably not, circling out. If I was checking off the box of what my investment strategy is right now in this, it wouldn't be like super aggressive. It would probably be moderate to more conservative.
I'm really glad, because we didn't talk much off air at all, but I'm really glad you went there with the niche sports, because that's been probably both, at least since we've started this show, your most successful venture was getting involved with F1, and my most successful venture has been getting involved with UFC. And I think that's such a good point. Something that I'm a firm believer in, obviously, is someone who strictly does showdown content for NFL DFS and really doesn't try to pretend to be a main slate expert, doesn't try to pretend to be an NBA expert. If you can just simply own your niche and know more about one thing than the rest of, in this case, the hobby knows about that thing, you can really find some success. And Gary's done that with F1. I think Gary's probably one of the most knowledgeable F1 hobbyists that I know. And I think that I've been able to do that kind of with the UFC, just diving deep down the UFC streets. And trying to better learn that market, and have had some success with, betting on Hamzat pretty aggressively when those things were cheap. But I think that's a great point. Just trying to find a niche, and whether that might be soccer for you, or WNBA for you, or if you've tailed Gary on F1 or me on UFC, just trying to really understand those things, I think, is a great point. The other thing for me, just in terms of how I plan to deploy my sports collectibles funds going forward, I'm really doubling down on fractional at this point. We had a good run today with Rally. Rally dropped the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, I got in on early access on that weeks ago, man. I love that thing. I'm so pumped.
I am glad you did. And I love Rally because they offer so much more than just sports collectibles, so much more than just sports cards. But I think today was just a great, and it wasn't gimmicky. It wasn't just for marketing. I know Rally is built for the long term, but today was great for onboarding new users for an offering that is truly once in a lifetime. And I think that they were successfully able to do that. And more importantly, they announced after that they are moving towards live trading. So something you and I have talked about is once you invest in a card, it's locked
Yes.
up for 90 days, and
Yep.
then you can only trade it during a 1-day trading window, basically during business hours. And if your shares aren't matched, or if it's not at the price you want, then you've got to wait another 90 days to trade again, to buy or sell more again. So they're doing live trading now, which is going to allow a lot more liquidity in that marketplace. And that's something that I'm very excited about. And having seen high-end cards continue to rise and high-end sports collectibles continue to set new records seemingly each and every auction, I'm never going to probably get my hands on those unless I win a Millie Maker or something like that myself. But I want to have a piece of that upside, if you will. And
Yep.
with things like other investors on the site being able to trade back and forth with, and buyout options, we've seen a lot of buyouts recently on Rally with other wealthy investors who just straight up buy the asset outright. I think there's plenty of upside in fractional still.
Yeah, it's a fascinating world as I'm getting to learn more and more about it. I think you had tweeted out they had bought out the shoes a couple, what was it,
Oh
last
man,
week? Yeah, and I was bummed about that too, because I owned a good amount of that,
yeah.
and it was, you explain what the shoe was. It was the Kobe,
Yeah. So
LeBron high school, right?
So
Wasn't
the great thing about Rally and these fractional sites, and we got to give Dibs some love too, because there's some stuff that's completely undervalued as is on Dibs.
it? Yeah,
Let alone not even baking in some of the upside, just is truly undervalued. But these shoes on Rally were one of these true one of one items, which has
right,
been a good point of yours, that if you're going to invest in something on Rally, it's going to be something that you'll never get your hands on in real life. Like you've got a lot of National Treasure RPA stuff that someone like myself would be stoked to have their hands on. But these shoes were gifted from Kobe to LeBron in high school, and then LeBron wore those shoes against in a game against Carmelo, which
yeah,
obviously, as we know the history there. Now Carmelo and LeBron are playing together, but they were also, not only that, they were also 9/11 tribute shoes, of which there were only 30 in total made. And this obviously is the only pair that was worn by both Kobe and LeBron. So the whole story kind of comes full circle with LeBron finishing his career seemingly in LA, winning a title for LA. And man, it was just one of those pieces that truly, like, it's hard to set a value on something like that,
right.
right? Because it
Nearly
is truly
impossible.
just, it's one of one. And I think the initial offering price was 180,000, and they got a $200,000 offer. And I was thinking, man, it was like a 12% ROI off a last trade, and I'm just thinking, this is a clear no. The ultimate bull case is that LeBron just buys these things outright to display in his home
Right,
or something like that,
for
or some
sure.
other wealthy LeBron collector buys them outright. But it was pretty cool to own a small piece of that. But
Yeah,
I was pretty bummed out that buyout offer was accepted.
when I saw those go up, however many months ago, that was one of the first. I was like, "Oh, I have to have my hands on
Yes,
on a piece of this right away." So that's the bummer. The downside of fractional is it could just be scooped out from your hands. But if it is, at least you're probably making money that way if a buyout offer
right.
is going to be accepted. So it's a cool market. Rally's awesome. Dibs is doing a great job, and you're going to get 30, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 cards and way more at times, plus all these other cool collectibles as well. So fractionals are a big part of the future here, I believe, as well. Definitely.
Agreed. I think we both feel pretty confident just about the future of the hobby, and we don't want to come off as just total optimists and kind of ignore some of the downfalls of what we've seen over the last couple of months, and potentially future downfalls of the hobby. But I think we're in a good spot overall.
Yeah. I mean, and I think we've done an okay job of pointing out where things have gone wrong.
Hmm.
Certainly, within base, and I think there's going to be times that we'll talk about it more because there's going to be dips. It's
Sure.
going to be like any other industry, any other um, investment piece. There's going to be times that things are up. There's going to be times that things are down. So
All right, you're on the flagship show tomorrow. Establish the run, establish the million, trying to help somebody take down a GPP as
yep,
you've done the last couple of weeks. Let's help you get prepared for that show a little bit, right?
let's do
By
it.
talking about some week 10 reactions, some week 11 look aheads as we're talking Friday night. Anything over the last couple of weeks in the football hobby catch your eye?
Well, I just think in general with football, and then we can kind of relate it to the hobby. I think the biggest fantasy story for sure last week was not only was Christian McCaffrey back for obviously running back for the Panthers, I believe one of your Dibs investments.
Hmm.
Not only was he back on the field finally, great to see, and looked like the old Christian McCaffrey of old. I think we have a big second half of the season coming up ahead. But the Panthers went out and signed their former MVP, their former quarterback that brought them to a Super Bowl in Cam Newton, and he's starting again this week. So I think that's just an interesting place to start as far as both let's take a look at what their cards have done and also let's speculate on what this might mean for Cam and C-Mac being reunited. The Panthers kind of just having kind of that swag of having those two guys there, and what those two guys on the field can mean for the rest of the season, both in the hobby and on the field. So that's where I'm looking.
It was really interesting because we had actually talked Cam Newton, I think one of our early episodes after the draft when the Patriots ended up with Mac Jones, and it kind of seemed like he was going to be the odd man out there. And there really wasn't much interest from either of us in Cam cards at that point, but he kind of gets the perfect situation, right?
Exactly.
Going back home in an offense that is led by Joe Brady and is stacked with weapons, with DJ Moore, with Robbie Anderson, with Christian McCaffrey, with Terrace Marshall. Those things dipped, obviously as they should when he was let go from the Patriots. Those cards were trading around, just trying to get back here to, where he was during the draft time, $400 for those cards in March, dipped around $300. Those things really fell off. We're under $100 for his Topps Chrome base PSA 10 and have since risen up a little bit. We've seen sales above 150 recently. So I think that there is some confidence, at least short term, that, Cam can help bring this team back to relevance after Sam Darnold failed to do so. Man, what a roller coaster ride for Sam Darnold. For someone like me that was pretty into Sam Darnold this offseason, given the upgrade in his situation, the upgrade in this offensive coaching staff, it was a wild ride because for moments there, it looked like Darnold was going to turn his career around, and then my God, it just truly fell off for him.
Totally. And give Evan Silva credit, because he was saying, well, it's the beginning of the season that the schedule is great and he's going to come out strong. And I don't think anyone knew he would be to this extent that he would fall off. I think if he's going to start out strong, I think he'd be able to at least hold on to that job for a little bit. But boy, did he fall off. It's just like something happens to that guy when he gets under pressure and his head goes somewhere else. And it's a shame because I like Darnold at USC. I like him coming out. I'm not happy with the Giants drafting Saquon, but if they didn't draft Saquon, I think they would have ended up with Darnold. So who knows if that would have been any better at this point. So, I wish him the best, but I'll say this with Cam. I think, obviously he's going to be most comfortable here in Carolina. He's got Christian McCaffrey is the best safety valve that a quarterback could possibly have. But if you're somebody that was sitting on a lot of Cam Newton and you realize you just didn't have a window, over the last year now, since week 3 or 4 of last season when he was kind of doing things with New England, I would say that you should be looking to sell sooner than later, because I do think, I'm just a little afraid, the more we do see of Cam Newton on the field, taking real snaps, throwing the ball downfield a little bit, that we're going to be reminded that he's not the same quarterback that we've had, that we saw 10 years ago, 8 years ago. That said, I do think he's their best option right now. He's one of he's one of the best goal line red zone threats ever, and I think it still has that piece to him. And he's back with a better supporting cast than he definitely had in New England last year. So I think he's set up for success here. But I think if, say, he comes out this week and has a great game and over the next 2 weeks, I think you're going to get that spike back up there on these cards that you might not be able to salvage again, at least for the time that he's still an active NFL player. That's where I'm at with Cam.
I would agree with that point. Especially with these base cards that we had just talked about, if you've got Topps Chrome Cam, whether it's raw or graded, I think especially if he's able to do a few things over the next couple of weeks would be a great time to offload some of that position. I don't think the Panthers have what it takes to make the playoffs. I know everyone was excited about Cam turning the corner and getting that rushing touchdown last week, but man, it looked like he was laboring a little bit there. I don't think he's exactly the Cam of old, and while he might be a red zone threat, while he might rack up touchdowns, and he is getting the start this week, it'll be interesting to see where his production, where his fantasy production, where his kind of card value shakes out. To your point on CMC, during the injury, he had really fallen off. His stuff was down pretty big over the last 6 months, about 25%, and has since bounced back now that he's back on the field, up about 4%. In recent months. So I think, again, someone like that, if you're trying to look at a short-term selling window, a guy like CMC, running backs. We know that their value can drop off pretty quickly in the hobby. If you've got some CMC, I would be looking to maybe offload that position here over the next couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, I have this gold vinyl 1 of 1 from the National Convention Prism
Oh,
packs.
that's sweet.
So it's just, it's not like a true Prism card, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still a 1 of 1, still a gold vinyl. I got it slabbed up just to protect it, but it's a PSA 8. That doesn't matter as much when it's a 1 of 1,
1-1.
obviously. That's actually a huge debate in the hobby, by the way. Should you grade a 1 of 1? Should you not grade a 1 of 1? Can it hurt its value? Can it help its value? At the end of the day, as long as it's not completely tanking in condition, it actually does not matter. That card maybe is not the most super high end 1 of 1, but if there is a desirable 1 of 1 of a desirable player, there's going to be someone out there that'll pay what it's worth or what they want it to be worth. At the end of the day, that's the deal with 1 of 1. So yeah. Anyway, I've had that out because I have drafted it ready to go. I've been waiting for the right moment to put it up, and I think we're right around there. So I'll probably be putting this thing up on Sunday now that he's back fully healthy. A lot of momentum, a lot of people playing him in DFS. I'll probably want to be one of those people. They're against Washington, not a defense that scares you. So yeah, C-Mac, just fun to have him back on the field, and it's good for fantasy, good for the hobby.
I think the big story of week 10 was kind of bounce backs, right? Because we had talked in week 9 how crazy that week was and how it just seemingly every NFL MVP candidate got decimated. All of the good teams looked awful. And then we come out in week 10 and, everybody that we were kind of questioning righted the ship as we expected them to. The Bills come out and went 45-17 over the lowly Jets. The Cowboys put a whooping on the Falcons, who just laid another egg Thursday night. Dak looks like himself again. And then also you've got Mahomes. Finally, the Mahomes and the Chiefs offense finally rights the ship 41-14 over the Raiders. Any or all of those names stand out to you? We weren't panicking, right, with any of those guys, but it kind of felt good to see that on the field again, especially with guys like Mahomes, where we hadn't seen it in a few weeks, and definitely Dak after they laid the egg against Denver, and the week prior he had the calf injury. So any of those guys stand out to you more than the other?
Yeah, I mean, for Mahomes, I think the Chiefs we were more worried about than Dallas, right? And now these two teams face off tomorrow on Sunday, which is really, really exciting. Literally the type of matchups that are handcrafted by the fantasy gods for us, I think. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I mean, overall, I'm just happy to see, because I mean, realistically, the NFL is much better when this Chiefs and Mahomes team is, operating at the strength that we've seen them operate at the last couple of years. And I don't know if they're back to that level yet, but I think they're at least like 80% of the way there, it looks like, from the last couple of games. So that I'm really encouraged by. Yeah, I mean, the only weird thing in week 10 was that the Bucs got whooped by Washington. Besides that, it was a real bounce back spot for a lot of people. Josh Allen as well, obviously took care of business against the Jets. So it's I think this is a good opportunity to kind of talk about, these are all teams that should be appearing in the playoffs. So like, just talk about in general, maybe some guys that we could try to pinpoint now that may see their value to continue to rise as they kind of reach towards the playoffs. So, I mean, I have a couple of names in mind if you want me to shoot some out at you.
Yeah, go for it.
Starting with Mahomes still, like he has not seen a major increase over the last 2 weeks, which is when he's kind of gotten the Chiefs back on track here. He's still down 8% over the last 2 weeks on his silver PSA 10. That card's still sitting around $6,700 according to Card Ladder. But I do think, they're 6-4 now, I think. And 7 teams, like, they're going to get themselves to the playoffs. You never know what's going to happen from there. I would be shocked if and when he finishes the season strong, he gets himself to the playoffs, if that card doesn't once again rise around that time. So that's one guy I'm looking at. The other guy I'm really looking at right now, and I haven't dove in too heavy yet, but one guy that I think would be really interesting to look at is Kyler Murray right now. Because the Cardinals are 8-2. He has not played the last 2 weeks. I think he's starting to leave the football lexicon just for the time being, right? We're talking about Colt McCoy and a lot of James Conner and, just all these other quarterbacks we were just mentioning. Lamar is still hot, and Allen and all these guys. Kyler's been playing a little hurt. He hasn't had Hopkins. I mean, he's been out for the last week. He's been, he's got an ankle thing. And even when he comes back, I do wonder, because they are 8-2 and so positioned well for the playoffs, I do wonder if Cliff Kingsbury and that Cardinals coaching staff just takes it easy on him, is not going to let him run as much, kind of what we saw down the stretch last year. But not because necessarily his ankle's still bothering him. I hope if they let him back, they just want to preserve him. So maybe we can kind of snag some high end Kyler stuff right now at lower prices. I'm seeing down the last 2 weeks his silver Field Level Select, which is one of my favorite cards, Papa 448, is down about 2%. So just at least you're seeing it start to go that way. You might be able to get these buying dips at a guy that's almost certainly going to have at least a home playoff game, probably.
Yeah, that field level silver PSA 10 is about $760 right now. That had crested north of $1,000 kind of during the peak of that Kyler MVP discussion. So I would fully agree with that. The NFC is loaded, which would be my main concern. But if you're looking to buy now and maybe a quick flip into that playoff run, maybe before they get into one of those tough matchups where they could theoretically get bounced, then I don't mind that one bit. But man, the NFC with the Bucks, with the Rams, with the Cowboys, with the Packers, with the Cardinals, it's a loaded division. I think you'll get softer matchups, a softer run towards an AFC championship, towards the Super Bowl from one of these AFC contenders. So I like your point on Mahomes that once he fully shows it again, right? We saw glimpses of it. We saw it again, what we've come to know from Mahomes. But once we see that consistently now again, they kind of saw the ball go through the hoop, if you will. And, Kelsey did I think I got my swagger back thing after the game. It was great. And so I think I don't want to go crazy one direction or the other, but I think that the Chiefs, we can declare them officially back. So I love the Mahomes call.
All right, I'll give you another NFC quarterback then that you just mentioned his team that I think you might have a little bit of a window here. While all the storylines around them are a little bit chaotic, they just brought in a very controversial figure, yet they're still 7-3, and they probably have the most overall talented roster on both sides of the ball, and that is the Los Angeles Rams and Matthew Stafford. So I'm looking right now at his 2009 Topps Chrome. It's a PSA 10. It's only a pop of 113. So
easy.
But it's only an $1,100 card. You would think now for somebody that has been a top 10 quarterback for the better part of a decade, probably going to be a Hall of Famer, has a real chance at a Super Bowl this year. It's down now just from 2 weeks of a little bit of downswing for the Rams. That card, only 4 sales, which you take that with a grain of salt, but down 26% on those 4 sales. So
man,
we're going to 2 weeks where they were selling for $1,625 2 weeks ago, whatever was available, all the way down to a little under $1,200 right now. So, if you are looking for something that definitely is a little bit more secure in its overall value, is probably a better investment piece than maybe flip. But regardless, if you believe in that Rams team to make noise in this NFC thing, and that's kind of your budget, if you have $1,000 hanging around for a card, if the Rams struggle one more time coming up here, or at least Stafford struggle, he's definitely hitting a little lull here in the mid season, and we'll see what happens. But that's someplace I'd be looking at. Once we hit the playoffs again, I think we'll be shoot back up.
Yeah, I know you talked about him when we did our underdog draft as a guy that you were in on, and alongside Tannehill as some of these older quarterbacks that had paths this year, but also had upside long term as Stafford, a potential Hall of Fame guy. The Rams have the third best odds as indicated by DraftKings Sportsbook to win the Super Bowl, plus 800. He's still got the fourth best odds even after those 2 primetime showings to win MVP. I don't know if he can do that after what he did against the Titans and the 49ers in prime time. That would be kind of a long shot for me. But yeah, long term, down 26% off of 2 bad performances. And the Rams are, obviously all in on a Super Bowl this year. We saw from their social media team. We know that they're all in on trying to win one this year. So that is sounds like a good bet to me. Yep. Anybody else, established names that you had that have caught your eye in recent weeks? Because I want to get to one rookie.
I want to get to rookies too. Why don't we transition to rookies? Because I have some. Let's talk about the Rookie of the Year race. Well, let's do that. I think there's 2 guys worth talking about here, and I'm curious what your take is on them. So what do you got in mind?
Well, you kick it off for me, because I know that you've been chasing kabooms. We had talked about that a little bit, that you were getting involved in some Chicago Bears breaks, chasing some Herbert. I want to hear the name that you say in terms of the Rookie of the Year race, and see if we're in agreement there. Are you doing any more kaboom chasing with any NFL rookie quarterbacks or skill position players at this point?
I'm not doing anything crazy. When I can get my hands on kaboom, I think Target just had some blasters available. They would take a max of buying 4. I bought them online, so those will come in a couple of days. But
okay,
I just love the little chase. It's fun because they're such a great insert. But no, I think we just have to talk about Mac Jones, right?
Yes.
And the New England Patriots. I think it's the only quarterback, honestly, worth really talking about right now, as far as who at least can make the playoffs, make some noise, has a chance of winning Rookie of the Year. It's going to be him or Jamar Chase, really. I think I don't think there's any other actual options for offensive Rookie of the Year. So Mac Jones is hyped through the effing roof right now,
Yep.
and I'm curious what your takes are on him, because I have a stance on if I had Mac Jones stuff, how I would handle it. But I'm curious what you think.
I think I know where you're going to go if you had Mac Jones stuff in your hands right now, and I think that you would probably sell.
Yes.
And I am absolutely with you.
I feel like we just
As
ate up Mac Jones on this podcast. We did that rookie draft. I think we left him undrafted. Now he's
but
by far the best most successful rookie quarterback, and we're just giving him no respect.
so here's the thing: as someone who is much more involved in breaking in the break streets than I am, the DFS hate has kind of gone through the roof because he's not a DFS quarterback. He's probably never going to be a DFS quarterback. That's hard to say for a guy that's 10 games through his NFL career. But just the way that the Patriots are setting things up for him, it's going to be a whole lot of like 16 for 24, 150 yards and a touchdown, and then they're going to run down your throat 40 times, and they're going to have 2 pick sixes, and it's not going to matter what Mac Jones does. But Belichick there, the organization around him, the team that they have, they're probably going to make a lot of NFL defenses and a lot of NFL offenses look bad en route to some strong performances. So I am with you. I'm not a huge believer. My priors during draft season haven't changed a whole lot on Mac Jones, but maybe that's a bad take. Maybe they should have. But I guess my question for you is, has the hobbies stance on someone like Mac Jones changed as you're looking through break streets and keeping an eye on that thing?
It definitely has. I mean, just talk about his Kaboom, raw Kaboom. It's going for $2,500.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God.
And like, I get it. He's a Boston quarterback.
Yeah.
And like, it's that same fan base that just had Tom Brady. They're thinking they just struck gold twice, right?
Right.
And take advantage of those fans that are want to buy him up right now. It probably was me with Daniel Jones 2 years ago. Like, right? The same suckers like that. But I'm not calling those people suckers, because I think he will have a very successful career. He'll probably make the playoffs multiple times. Probably make the playoffs this year. He has Bill Belichick at the helm, and he's going to be a good quarterback that is going to carry success in the hobby because of it, because he's a quarterback of the New England Patriots, because he has Bill Belichick, and he'll probably do a lot of winning. I don't think the flash matters as much because of those 3 things.
Sure.
He's going to be, he's a good, solid, he's going to probably be around for a long time. He obviously has all the intangibles as far as, X's and O's and the work ethic and all of that stuff. So I don't think he's going to let himself fail. But when you see a $2,500 card for one rookie that has a 10-game sample size, that it's hard to very much picture the MVP type of upside. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying we can't do that. I mean, I'm sure people did say the same thing about Tom Brady in 2001 or whatever.
Right.
But that is just a price that would be too good for me to pass up. Plus, you have just the hype that's gone through the roof through this guy. So that's as more Mac Jones stuff comes out, as that guy becomes more and more the chase of this product, not the Jamar Chase, just the chase of this product, I think I'd be looking to sell as the hype continues there. But that said, you probably are getting some Mac Jones playoff games this year. So
yeah, and hand raised on this one, because I'm fully applying fantasy and DFS principles to something that is not completely explained away by fantasy and DFS. He probably won't be a great fantasy quarterback, at least in the near term. He's not going to put up flashy numbers. He's not going to be Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert. He's not going to do that, but he is going to win games, and that team is going to win games. And as much as I wanted to doubt them, as many Patriots fans as I have in my life, oddly enough, being in Nebraska, I've got a brother and a brother-in-law who are diehard Patriots fans, so I got to listen to them again after they lose Tom Brady and look like garbage. Now they get the second coming, apparently, and they're going to win a lot of games. But I'm with you. $2,500 for a raw Kaboom. We start getting Prism Silvers and Prism Refractors out there, and those become the chase. Then certainly, if you hit on those and you're breaking ultra modern stuff, if you're breaking football, then if you get those, I think it's a good chance to just take some money off the table.
I will say, though, if you do have one of those Kabooms in hand and it looks good to you, like truly flawless, it's definitely worth $150 to grade it, because there's going to be very low pop of those Kaboom PSA 10s for Mac Jones. And if you were lucky to get your hands on one of those, you turn that $2,500 into something a lot, way more real quick. So,
right.
But yeah, just to get real football nerdy real quick with Mac Jones, he's 7-4. You got to give him a lot of credit for that. He's completing 70% of his passes. You got to give a lot of credit for that. 2,500 yards through those 11 games, but 7.3 yards per attempt. Like, that's a big number, or a small number, I should say, that is slightly concerning when you're talking about that kind of stuff. But a 14-8 touchdown interception ratio. He looks good. He looks calm, poised, controlled out there. He only has one 300-yard passing game of the year. He only has one 3-touchdown game so far this year. That said, again, we're only 11 games in. It's impressive what he's doing. You look at all these other rookie quarterbacks. They are not playing with the same poise that one Mac Jones is. So credit to him where credit is due, but he's a sell for me right now.
And last point on this, to your point on the 7.3 yards per attempt, they're scheming up things for him, right? Having looked at this game last night as they played the Falcons in prime time, they're definitely scheming things up for him. There's a lot of running back checkdowns. I think they're first in the league in running back completions. There's a lot of quick out routes. They're doing a lot of things well for him. So if you, like Gary and I, had some questionable priors on Mac Jones's talent compared to some of the other quarterbacks in this league, you can at least take some comfort in knowing that this team, this offensive coordinator, Bill Belichick, is not gonna put him in positions to fail. They're gonna do things that make him look good, make him look better than he might be. So at least you can take comfort in knowing that.
Yep, exactly.
All right, you've been real busy in NBA, focusing on all things props, all things DFS, continuing to take down large field tournaments. Anything with respects to the NBA hobby that has caught your eye, as we're now, I think, 15-ish games through the season?
Yeah, we are about 15-ish games through the season. No, I mean, overall, it's been, I think, a pretty positive reception to NBA to start this year. Obviously, it does not help that the kind of darling of the NBA hobby from the last couple of years is on the shelf in Zion Williamson. I think that hurts just the general hype and awareness and just excitement about NBA cards in general. But there are guys like LaMelo Ball and Ja Morant to keep that ultra modern, hype really, strong and thriving. But no, I mean, overall, I think the LeBrons, the Giannis's, we're not seeing too much movement there, which makes sense. I mean, it's early on in the season. We've seen LeBron miss a bunch of games. What am I encouraged by? I'm really encouraged by seeing LeBron's teammate Anthony Davis kind of really try to put the team on his back when LeBron's been out and he's been playing big minutes. That's always something that's been scaring me with AD forever. But you talked about that 2012 Prism class. That's a guy that I'd be super cool investing in, especially as you've seen over the last 3 months, towards the end of last season. And then in this offseason, that card's really taking a dip. It's only a pop of $1,500. So that PSA 10 is only a $627 card right now for Anthony Davis, for a guy that was also just named to the top 75 of all time, for the guy that is still very young, for a guy that has a ring. That was a card that I was looking at there. Our guy RJ going through a little bit of a slump right now. His defense still very good. His driving still really solid, but she's in a big shooting slump, as all the Knicks starters are. Not too concerned there, but if you see that continue and to dip, I think you just have some RJ buying opportunities. But no, it's been a real return of that same class. RJ, Tyler Hero, Ja Morant. I think they've been having a really solid year, seeing Tyler Hero and Ja Morant get their markets back up, which has been nice.
Yeah, and to that point, I want to mention Top Shot, and maybe we can get out of here on this tonight, because Top Shot has released their Series 3, releases 1 and 2. We've seen the Evan Mobley moments. Now, finally, with Series 3, release number 3, we're going to get our first debut moment from Scotty Barnes. I haven't looked at the Rookie of the Year odds recently. With the Mobley injury, is Barnes kind of the runaway favorite at this point, or has Cade's return done something to keep that in check at this point?
I think Mobley is still favored as of 2 days ago, because it's only going to be out for 2 to 4 weeks. So hopefully,
okay,
I believe so. So hopefully it's on that shorter end of things. So Mobley, this is from 2 days ago from OddsShark, but Mobley was plus 180, Barnes plus 300. Cade now creeping back up there. Now he's playing big minutes and looking pretty good. Cade Cunningham is plus 500. So those are the big three in the clubhouse. Mobley, I think, would still be a very, very strong favorite for me, as long as he doesn't have any setback with this injury. But I'm really excited for those products to come out. But we should mention, actually, and maybe we get out on this, there have been new releases coming out slowly in the hobby. With football, we've seen a lot of the collegiate flawless stuff. So they're the first big patch autos for the Jamar Chases, Trevor Lawrence, but it's in their college uniforms. People really like that. That came out last week. It does sustain more resale value than any other stuff in their college uniform, called collegiate flawless, collegiate national treasures. And it also has that niche market where, like, if you have someone that's a huge Clemson fan, they want that Trevor Lawrence out of 5 with the cool Clemson patch in there. Not for me, but there is a market for that right now. So that's something that's going to see floating around a lot. And then we do have a couple of releases coming up, really more towards the beginning of September. Spectra football is the next like kind of solid football release that comes out December 8th. So we have 3 weeks or 3 weeks or so. A solid product with like Prism, some parallels, some cool patch autographs, some fun stuff there. And then Impeccable Football comes out 12/15, which is one of my favorite football products, actually. I think it's a lot of on-card autos, a lot of rookie helmet autographs. I showed my 201 that I had from there not too long ago. So we're starting to finally get some cool football releases. I think that we'll continue to see those in December, January. Still no word on Prism for football. Basketball wise, we're still towards the end of our 2021 releases, but
we will be cracking this draft class in 2024. Maybe we'll find at some point.
So Panini 1-in-1, which was a real success last year, was a new release last year. They put the downtown inserts in there. They had those timeless moment cards that were sweet, like the vertical big Sharpie autographs. Though that comes out on 12/8 for 2021. So we'll have the LaMelo downtown insert. Hopefully, will be in there and. Great product, very high end, and hard to hit things if you're in breaks because there's only like 2 or 3 cards per box. So that comes out on 12/8, and then eventually we'll get Flawless Basketball as well, and that should hopefully wrap up the 2021 NBA stuff. And then F1, no full original release date, but sometime in December they're still saying for 2021 F1. So starting to heat up a little bit with releases.
All right, I'm going to get us out of here on this. If you're following along on YouTube, I am sharing my screen. Just going to kind of tie everything up in a bow here.
Hold on,
we talked through the market as a whole. We talked through my love for fractional, Gary's love for continuing to invest in high-end cards. And we just talked about Mac Jones's Kaboom that everyone's going to be chasing. If you're watching on the screen, we've got LaMelo Ball's 2020 Kaboom pulled up here, PSA 10. Dibs is offering this thing for $9,000, which is about $2,200 less than it last sold for. I think this is a great way to get your hands on one of the hobby's preeminent names and do so at your own comfort level. So you want to buy $25 of this, you want to buy $100 of this, you want to buy $500 of this card. You can get your hands on as much or as little as you want by going to Dibs. Check the link in the show notes here, but I think that's just in kind of the vein of the show. We want to make sure that you guys are getting your hands on the best product and the product with the most upside. I think a great way to do that is by getting your hands on a piece of this card at Dibs.
Yeah, that seems like such a value to me. I mean, let's be real. That card's just going to go up. LaMelo went off once again tonight. He
looks great, man. He looks
really
great.
Looks like the real deal. To get that Kaboom slabbed up in a PSA 10, I almost guarantee, unless something really bad goes wrong in his career, that's going to be a value at that for that card. I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if it is not with a pop of 36. Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah, so
definitely. Can't go wrong with that. We want to thank you guys for being here. We'll be back next week. Hopefully we want to bring on some of the guys from Dibs, Ari and Chris and Evan. Great team over there. They've supported the show. They've been great friends to the show. So we want to thank them. We want to have them on just because they're smart guys in the hobby, and we want to chop it up with them. So hopefully,
and talk about the strategy of Dibs and what their plans are moving forward. Well, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff we could talk to about with those guys. So we're excited to have them on soon, maybe next week. And please subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Obviously, as always, we're trying to grow this thing. We're approaching episode 30 here. We'd love to give a giveaway for episode 30. Need the love from you guys. Please do spread the word.
And on that note, he's Gary. I'm Cody. We'll see you next week.
Take care, everyone.